Alright, let's see. Oh, I got a hot take, Yep, there's a hot take coming, hot take.
We have been running our whole lives.
Star-Lord is back in his time. He doesn't have Thor with him, so it's destined to be a lot better, right? Right? In Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Okay, so before I give my thoughts on this film, I should give my thoughts on the previous Guardians movies. The first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I didn't love, but I enjoyed it. I liked how creative it was and weird it was. I thought it was the perfect time for a film like that to come out in the MCU. I had a good time with it. The second film, I absolutely adore. I thought it was incredibly creative, very funny, great pacing, great imagery, wonderful drama. It's easily one of my top 5, maybe even top 3 favorite Marvel movies. So I absolutely adore the second one, and I was very, very excited for Volume 3. And with that said, I didn't like it, y'all. I really feel like I'm gonna be the lone bastard on this one, but this is a movie that really felt like it was an imitation of the other Guardians movies rather than an actual Guardians movie. This is a film that takes all the things that worked in the other Guardians movies and just turns it up to 11, which is fair. That's what we want to see in a wrap-up film. This is the final of the James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but it doesn't have the same heart or magic as the other films did, and it especially does not have the spontaneity of the other films. There is a super melodramatic tone that just washes over this entire movie, which again, you could argue was there from the beginning, because in the first film, you have the main character watching his mother die when he's a child, like in a hospital bed. Like, that's pretty heavy. And the same thing with the second film. There's a lot of very heavy moments, but it balances out with this surreal, brand new, exciting world that I feel like we haven't really seen at that point, and being told in a unique way with unique humor. But now several years have passed, and I feel like a lot of the MCU movies are keeping that same brand of humor that was fresh 10 years ago, but just feels really dated and really stale now. There are entire routines based around how to sit on a couch and how to open a car door. Not a line, an entire routine.
Push down on it.
What?
Push it down.
I am pushing down on it.
Push the button. It looks like you're pushing the keyhole.
The what?
There's a button under the handle.
Now what?
Open the...
Shut up!
Now, this isn't something like Thor: Love and Thunder, where it would be fine if they just turned off the comedy. It's almost the opposite. I'd say maybe 1 of every 8 jokes gets a laugh, which is still way too few. But unlike Thor: Love and Thunder, where they just constantly throw jokes at you even when they're not wanted, this one spaces them out a lot more, but you have to really wade through a lot of bad one-liners and jokes that don't even match necessarily the characters. Like, you got Drax getting upset that he's wearing a spacesuit that has a color that doesn't match his eyes. Like, that doesn't sound like that character.
We were always searching for a family.
Oh, I didn't tell you about the ingenious joke where Cosmo is called a bad dog and she doesn't want to be called a bad dog. Yeah, that's it. They just do that over and over and over, and you know, we haven't seen anything like that, and boy, does it end in a way you never could have seen coming. God damn it, I'm so sick of this humor. Star-Lord is a real pain to sit through in this movie. I know people were like, oh my god, Chris Pratt is gonna play Mario, that's gonna be awful. I feel like this is the one we should have been more worried about, because the setup is that he's trying to win over Gamora in this, and Gamora is a different version. She's from a different universe, a different timeline, and I thought that was gonna be really interesting. I like this idea of, can you win somebody over if it's the same person but different circumstances happened or didn't happen? I thought that was really, really intriguing, but all it is, it's him simping for her and shouting at her and complaining to her and her just shouting and complaining back. It's like watching Twister. Like, all they do is yell at each other, and it is just so obnoxious and so one note and gets old really quickly.
Met a girl, but then she came back. Came back a total dick.
I hope you like that tone, because that's like 50% of his performance. Robert De Niro used to have a line about how truly powerful men never yell. Well, if that's the case, the villain in this must be the weakest guy in the universe because his entire performance is the last 5 minutes of The Robe. He is constantly screaming for seemingly no reason. Even when things are going his way, he's screaming in anger. And this is coming from a guy who made a living screaming, saying somebody is screaming too much. Think about that. I'm not sure if it's the director, if he was miscast. I feel like this kind of role could maybe work for someone like Joffrey, like a younger actor maybe, or like a bratty actor, but every time he came on, he was louder than the explosions. Like I was plugging my ears half the time. But now here's the thing, I didn't hate this movie. There are a couple of things that do pull it through okay. One of them is the majority of things that are done with Rocket. Rocket, even though he's taken out of a good chunk of the movie, he's unconscious through most of it, we get a lot of flashbacks with him. We get a lot of his backstory, where he came from, why he's as intelligent as he is and can talk and all that stuff. And it's done well, even though it is very predictable. Like, I'm not gonna give any spoilers away, but these animal characters that you see in all the trailers, they take place in a flashback. Now, I'm not telling you anything else about the movie, but don't you instantly know what's gonna happen? The movie constantly acts like it's surprising you with things you've never seen before and we have seen done to death. But on that note, the other major thing that I think is really well done in this, and I didn't even really put this together, that this is actually a constant thing with a lot of Phase 4 MCU movies, is that the story's pretty good. If you were to show me just the outline of what these characters do, where they go, what the main conflicts are, how it ends, how it all wraps up, I'd say this is really good. Like, I would tweak one or two little things, but I'd say this is solid, go for it. There is also one cool action sequence where they do this big fight in one long shot, which we've seen a million times in movies, but again, the way they do it is pretty unique. It's almost like you're a fly with a wide angle lens on you, like a fisheye lens, just flying around as the Guardians take out all these baddies. And that was really cool. Like, that was something unique and new. I kind of wanted more stuff like that from this movie. But what gets in the way of all that is, A, the humor, which, like I said, just feels 10 years old. On top of that, the pacing feels really off, and I think a lot of that is on the editing. This is a film where I kind of stopped listening to what they were saying with all the side quests and all the characters constantly screaming. I'm really not even kidding. Half the dialogue is, "I don't know what we're yelling about!" And I instead actually started counting how many seconds they held on a shot until it cut. And not during an action sequence, I'm talking when just two people are talking. They cut between 2 to 3 seconds at a time, and that is way too fast, especially for a Guardians movie where you want to feel like you're really in the room with these characters, you're really in these strange worlds, and they do not give you that pleasure. And maybe it's a good thing because a lot of these worlds also don't look that great. That's another thing I loved about the Guardians movies, is that the worlds were so bright and vibrant and colorful. Again, you just really wanted to go into these places and explore them, but for whatever reason, the way it's shot, everything is kind of overexposed and grainy and white, and it almost seems the opposite of what we're used to seeing in these movies. Now, there's one place they go to that's like an alternate version of Earth, except animal people are walking around. Now, that's fine. That's what you want, because that's the strange thing, the animal people. You want everything else to kind of look sterile and boring, and the animals are the strange thing about it, so that's fine. But whenever they travel to different worlds, they just don't look that impressive because they're just not colorful. They don't really feel like they have much variety to the designs. Even when you do finally go to a place that looks kind of cool, there's this one point where they go to like these space intestines and the inside kind of looks like the opening of Supergirl. Those sets look really cool, but again, they're not shot that great. They're once again just really overexposed, like it's half the shots in AI for some reason. That's not what I want from a Guardians movie. I want to feel like I can really walk through this place and enjoy these worlds with these characters.
Just never noticed how black your eyes were.
They were replaced by my father as a method of torture.
Oh, speaking of torture, an entire civilization is taken out in this, and I kinda had to remind myself it even happened. They referred to it so little. For Guardians, they don't really guard stuff that well. You know the scene in the first Guardians movie where Groot kind of opens up his hand and these little fireflies start going all over the place? It's a little out of nowhere and feels just a hint forced, but it's still a nice moment. It's still something that's kind of cool and stays with you and everything. They try to recreate that 20 times in this, and it's not something where they want like a variety of different emotions, like, oh, well, this is just a nice little moment, or this is a big moment, or this is a ha-ha moment. They are all exactly the same. They're supposed to be mind-blowing, heart-tugging moments, and you can tell that because the music always blares as loud as it can. It always has the chorus going, oh! Like they just said the most important yet simplest wisdom you ever heard 20 times, and it just wears on you after a while. Okay, I take it back. Will Poulter is the only other consistently good thing in this movie, and you could cut him from this and really not miss a thing, except that Will Poulter would be the most consistently good thing in this movie. But okay, there's kind of a catch to this. I have a feeling there is going to be a fair amount of people who do really get into this film because it is the conclusion and because it is so big and overly dramatic. And the reason I think that is, I recently reviewed the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Hear me out, there is a reason for this. And when I got to At World's End, I remember everybody hating that movie when it came out. Critics and audiences, just everybody I knew said, oh man, it's way too long and way too overly dramatic and not fun. But I found people that kind of grew up with those movies, or even just watched them all back to back, like that last part, because it is everything I just said. It is really long, it is really big, it is overly dramatic, and maybe because at the time that was seen as the final chapter, the big epic conclusion. So I feel like there is going to be an audience that enjoys this. I don't want to give the impression that this is a complete betrayal to Guardians fans or anything like that. I don't think it is. I feel like it's relying way too much on too many familiar tricks that haven't been polished up. I do still love these characters. I did want to see how this all wrapped up. I mean, even if you told me this was a bad movie, I would still go see it. I like Guardians that much. I would just have to know how it finishes. And the final moments are not bad moments. Again, if you just showed me the story and the layout, I would say this is good. It's the little details that add up to me. The way it looks, the way it's edited, the lines written for everybody, the pacing, those are things that just finally added up, and I just couldn't bear it anymore. So I do think there is an audience that's going to enjoy this. I don't want to give the wrong impression that you all are going to hate it. I think there is definitely a crowd there if you're looking for just overly emotional moments that are going to really be shoved in your face, but that's kind of what you're looking for as well. I can't act like I'm not sometimes looking for that in send-offs to certain movies and shows. Then it's there. I would just say it's not going to quite have the same magic of the other two films, at least in my opinion. So let's give it 2 out of 4 Mary Poppins, y'alls. I didn't hate it, but I did think it was death by 1,000 cuts. With that said, what did you all think? Because I really get the feeling people are going to disagree hard with me, or at the very least it's going to be divisive. Did you think this was a fantastic send-off for the characters? Was this what you were looking for in a finale to Guardians of the Galaxy? Did you feel it had the same humor and the same drama? It was all magnified the perfect way it should be? Or did you think it was just another terrible Phase 4 movie and the MCU is dead and the stupid humor is just destroying everything and they really should get some new material? Or are you somewhere in between where you say, yeah, it wasn't perfect, but you know what? I like these characters, I like this world, and it's nice to see them get a nice send-off. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you next time. Take care.